So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa sallim tasliman kathira. We'll start talking about the Sunnah of the prayer and also the recommendations of prayer. We have seen yesterday the obligatory acts of prayer. Today we'll see what is not obligatory. So go ahead, Majid. Bismillah.
بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد رسول الله. يقول المؤلف رحمه الله: ونفعنا بعلوم وعلومكم. وسننها قراءة آية أو بعض آية يتم الكلام به بعد الفاتحة في غير الثالثة والرابعة، وندب إكمال سورة، وجهر أقله أن يسمع من يليه في الجمعة والصبح وأوليي المغرب والعشاء، والتكبير للركوع والسجود، وللرفع منه، وللقيام من التشهد، وقول سمع الله لمن حمده للإمام والفذ في الرفع من الركوع، والتشهد الأول والجلوس له، والتشهد الثاني والجلوس له.
Okay, so the sunnah of the prayer, the acts that you do, but if you don't do them, when you do them, you have additional reward, and if you don't do them, you don't have punishment, but your prayer is not perfect. First is recitation of an ayah or a portion of an ayah that complete the that the idea is complete. It is not just enough to recite the ayah or a portion of the ayah. You need to have a full meaning from what you are reciting after the Fatiha. So if somebody say ثم نظر, that's an ayah, but the meaning is not really full here. So the sunnah is to recite a surah or ayah or portion of ayah that makes sense, that has a full meaning after the Fatiha. And this is in the first and second rakah. For the third and the fourth rakah, we don't recite other than the Fatiha. And then it is recommended, that's less than sunnah, to read a full surah. So that's, which means that if you have to read a full surah, it means that it's recommended in the prayer, especially in the masjid, to read an average, generally short or medium surah, because you will not recite all the Fatiha and finish that in Dhuhr or Maghrib. And it is also the sunnah to be out loud and to be out loud in the prayer that you are supposed to recite them out loud. And the measurement, how do you know what is reciting out loudly and what is reciting silently? So the least out loud recitation is the recitation that the person next to you can hear you. If the person who's next to you does not hear you, that's not counted as an out loud recitation. That's something to be aware of that. So you do the out loud prayer recitation in Jum'ah, the 2 rak'ah, and the Fajr, the Salat al-Subh, the 2 rak'ah of Fajr, Subh, and then the first 2 rak'ah of Maghrib and Isha. Also, it is a sunnah to say Allahu Akbar on your way to your ruku. The Allahu Akbar of the movement, that's takbiratul intiqal, the takbirah that you do for a movement. And then the Allahu Akbar that you do in order to go to the sujood, and the same Allahu Akbar raising your head from the ruku and sujood, and standing from the tashahhud. All these are sunan, the takbirat al-intiqal are sunnah, and also saying Sami Allahu liman hamida for the imam and for the person who is praying individually, that's sunnah when you raise from your ruku. We will see later if you are behind the Imam what you say. And the first tashahhud is sunnah too, and sitting for the tashahhud is sunnah, and the second tashahhud and sitting for it are all sunnah. So go ahead, Majid.
ورد السلام على من يساره إن شاركه في ركعة، والجهر بتسليمة التحليل، والزيادة على قدر الطمأنينة في الأركان، والسترة للإمام والفذ إن خاف من يمر، وأقلها طول ذراع وغلظ رمح، ولا يبعد عنها أكثر من 3 أذرع، وإنصات المقتدي في الجهر وإن لم يسمع إمامه، وهل السجود على اليدين والركبتين وصدور القدمين واجب أو سنة خلاف.
Okay, so returning the salam to the one on his left if that person shared a rak'ah with him. So for the Maliki, so the assalamu alaikum is one assalamu alaikum for the imam or the person who is praying individually. Assalamu alaikum on your right. So if somebody is next to you, meaning that if you are in a congregation and a person who's next to you on your left, if that person started share at least one rak'ah with you, it is sunnah to return the salam to that person. But returning the salam is not saying wa alaikum salam, is say assalamu alaikum too. So you do that salamu alaikum that you do with the intention of returning the salam to the person on your left is sunnah. And saying the final salam audibly, when you say assalamu alaikum, it has to be loud, so a person who's next to you can hear. And then in addition to that, the period of stillness during the pillars. So if in addition to the period of stillness, we have seen in the past yesterday that being still in your movement, when you go to a movement, you have to go to the full stop of that movement. That's tumanina. If you add a little bit more, that's sunnah, meaning that take your time for in your prayer, in the movement of your prayer is sunnah, especially in the movement for the pillars. And sutra is also sunnah for the imam and a person who's praying individually. So if you're praying in congregation, you don't need, you're not required to have a sutra. And sutra is a barrier that you put in front of you. It is sunnah when you expect people to walk in front of you. If you are in your house or next to the wall where no one will can pass in front of you, there's no need for you to put a sutra there. And if you are praying behind the imam also, you don't put a sutra. Sutra is for the imam and the person who is praying individually. And then what is the characteristics of that sutra? The sutra has to be at least 1 cubit tall. Cubic is the distance from the tip of your finger to your elbow. That is zira. So it has to be that long at least. It's something that you point if you are outside, like an arrow or a spear, and it has to be the thickness has to be at least like an arrow. So you can say like a finger, for example. And it should not be at a distance from the person who's praying more than 3 cubics, 3 length of the tip of your finger to your elbow. And then another sunnah also is that when you are praying behind an imam that is reciting an out loud prayer, a loud prayer, Maghrib and Isha for the 2 rak'ah of Fajr, it is sunnah to remain silent and not recite, so that you can contemplate or listen to the recitation. That's different from the Shafi'i madhab, where you are obligated to recite the Fatiha at least. So the sunnah of being silent is applicable also even if you don't hear the imam. Let's say that you're praying behind the imam in Fajr prayer. You are very far and you cannot hear him, but you know that the imam is reciting loudly. You listen and you don't recite. And another sunnah is making sujood on your two hands. You need to have your two hands on the ground and your two knees on the ground, and the feet, the bottom of your feet also touching the ground. So this part, the sujood part, has to be on the ground, but there's a debate among scholars. Some the Maliki scholars, some say that it is wajib, which means that it goes far, it will be fard, as we and it should be with what we have seen yesterday. But some say that it is sunnah, so that's not a big deal. Both are valid opinion. Go ahead.
ومندوباتها رفع اليدين حال الإحرام والجهر بتكبيرته وتطويل قراءة في الصبح والظهر وتقصيرها في العصر والمغرب والتوسط في العشاء وطوال المفصل من سورة قاف إلى سورة عبس والوسط منها إلى الضحى والتسبيح في الركوع والسجود والدعاء وبين السجدتين وتمكين اليدين في الركبتين في الركوع والتجنيح فيه وفي السجود مع رفع بطنه عن فخذيه.
Okay, so other sunan too is as the recommended acts of the prayer are raising your hands during the takbiratul ihram. When you say Allahu Akbar, that you are entering the prayer. And for the Maliki, the raising of the hand is to the shoulder. For the Hanafi, those of us who are Hanafi, is to the your parallel to your ears. So that's Mandub. And being loud, audible with saying Allahu Akbar of entering the prayer, and making a prayer relatively long in the morning and Zuhur prayer, and short the recitation relatively long in the morning and Dhuhr prayer, and relatively short in Asr and Maghrib, and in between medium in the recitation of Isha. So what are the relatively long, short, and medium? That's what it will mention. So al-mufassal, the long recitation, which we call scholars call tiwal al-mufassal, is from Surah Qaf to Surah Abasa. So this is where it is recommended to recite in the morning prayer. For the Isha prayer, when you recite the medium part, is from Surah Duha, from Surah Abasa to Surah Duha. That's the medium part. And then from Surah Duha to Surah Nas, that will be the short part. This is what you recite in Maghrib and Asr. Saying Subhanallah in your ruku and sujood is recommended, and making dua also in your ruku, in your sujood is recommended. What dua in your ruku and between والتسبيح في الركوع والسجود والدعاء supplication. Yeah, so during the sujood and between. So the dua during your sujood and between the two sujood is recommended. And posing your two hands on your knees, grasping your knees with your palms, your two hands, that's recommended. And also separating between your arms and your side, your chest. You don't stick your arm to your chest. You separate them, and separate also your stomach from the ground during the sujood is recommended. There's a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said, "Do not make your sujood like a dog sitting." في السجود مع رفع بطنها, and make sure that your stomach are not connected to your thighs. Go ahead.
وقول ربنا ولك الحمد للمأموم والفذ والإفضاء في الجلسات ووضع اليدين فيها على الفخذين ورؤوس الأصابع على الركبتين وفي التشهدين يجعل الثلاثة وسط الكف مادا السبابة إلى جانب الإبهام ويحركها دائما والصلاة على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء في التشهد الأخير والتيامن في سلام التحليل.
Okay, so saying ربنا ولك الحمد for the follower, the person who is praying behind the imam, and the person who is praying alone, that's recommended. And sitting in a way of ifda. Let me show you what ifda is. That's recommended. That's when you sit. When you sit, let me show you. Let me share. Okay, here. So if you see that the way is sitting, you put your left leg under your right leg, and the tip of your toes are straight, touching the ground, and you're sitting on your right, I would say, buttocks, or your right thigh. It touches the ground. So with the picture, I think that this should be clear. So let me go back to the main slide. So that's called ifda, or also in other books it will be called tawarruk. And placing the hand on the side with the tips of the finger, you fold your three fingers, and your thumb, you placing the hand on the side with the tips of the finger on the knees. So when you put your hand on the side, you fold the three fingers and also your thumb, and you leave only the index. That's recommended. And during the tashahhud, you move your index. During the tashahhud, let me go back again. Placing your hand on your thighs with the tips of the fingers toward the knees, that's recommended. And during the tashahhud, you fold the three fingers and your thumb, and you leave only you open the index here, translated as the pinky, and you move that. You extend that and you move it during the tashahhud, the whole tashahhud, you move it. Certainly, you have seen some people doing that in their prayer. And saying salat ala nabi, salat Ibrahimiyya after the tashahhud is sunnah, and making dua after the last tashahhud is also sunnah, and starting with your right in the salam that you end your prayer with is also recommended. I mean, recommended, not sunnah. And yeah, turning your head to the right for the exit salam. Go ahead, Majid.
والقنوت ومحله في الأخيرة من الصبح، ويندب تقديمه على الركوع والإسرار به، وكونه بهذا اللفظ، وهو اللهم إنا نستعينك ونستغفرك ونؤمن بك ونتوكل عليك ونثني عليك الخير كله ونشكرك ولا نكفرك ونخنع لك ونخلع ونترك من يكفرك، اللهم إياك نعبد ولك نصلي ونسجد وإليك نسعى ونحفد، نرجو رحمتك ونخاف عذابك الجد إن عذابك بالكافرين ملحق.
So it is also a recommended act of prayer to recite the qunut in the final rakah of the morning prayer, Salat al-Subh. It is recommended to recite it before the ruku and silently. And so that's also different than the Shafi'i, where the Shafi'i recite the qunut out loud, and for the Maliki, we recite the qunut before going to ruku. For the Shafi'i is after raising from the ruku that you recited. The recitation is out loud, but for the Maliki, the recitation is silently. The Hanafi, there's no ruku qunut in Fajr. So that's important to realize next time you visit a Maliki country or praying behind a Maliki Imam in Fajr prayer, and he stand up after the recitation of Fatiha and the Surah during the second rakah, and he becomes silent. Don't think that he forgot something. He did not forget the recitation. He's simply making the qunut silently. And the qunut is this dua, Allahumma, that Majid has recited. Go ahead.
Imam, is there a preference to read the dua in English rather in Arabic rather in reading the translation in English, or is it the same?
In prayer, I will say that reading the dua, so the qunut, we say that to read that in Arabic. But if you are making a dua silently, that's a good question. I think that there's a details. It is not the same for all. Right? If somebody knows Arabic, that person, if you want to recite it out loud, make his prayer, his dua out loud, I always say that he should do that in Arabic. That's because of the prayer being, what you do in your prayer is like dhikr. So part of dhikr of your prayer. So it has to be in Arabic, like you recite the tashahhud in Arabic. But if that person does not know Arabic, I will say that he make his dua in any language, but preferably to make that dua silently, so that he will not interfere with the the pattern of prayer. That's how I understand it to be. But I'm not sure. I don't remember reading any preference about that. but I will say to be on the safe side, recite it in Arabic. If you can, if you cannot in Arabic, recite your dua in your language, but let it be silently. But for the qunut, I will definitely say that the qunut has to be in Arabic because it is part of the dhikr of the prayer, like the Subhanallah. Wallahu a'lam. Unless if you don't know you don't know Arabic, you are a new Muslim. But I don't know if this is the question that you have
Yes.
asked. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Barakallah. Okay, go ahead.
ولفظ التشهد التحيات لله الزاكيات لله الطيبات الصلوات لله السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وتقول ندبا بعد تشهد السلام اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت وباركت على إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد.
So this is the wordings of the tashahhud that the Maliki, that Imam Malik has chosen, and you may realize that is a little bit different than what you do. This tahiyatu lillah, zakiyatu lillah, tayyibatu salawatu lillah. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. So this tashahhud may be different than what you are familiar with. That's because the Prophet, there are different forms of tashahhud reported from different companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and each Imam has chosen a particular tashahhud of a particular Sahabi. For the Maliki, Imam Malik has chosen this tashahhud, which is the tashahhud of Umar ibn Khattab. The narrator says that he heard Umar teaching people on the mimbar, on the pulpit. For the Hanafi, the tashahhud that the Hanafi Imam Abu Hanifa has chosen is different, and he has chosen the tashahhud of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. And the tashahhud of, and we have seen that yesterday in the Usul of Fiqh, Sunday, sorry, how the country, the region where the Imam was, the Sahabi who live in the region of the Imam have shaped the mazhab. So Imam Malik lived in Medina and Umar ibn Khattab lived in Medina. So it would be natural that Imam Malik chose the tashahhud of Umar ibn Khattab, which is this. Imam Abu Hanifa lived in Kufa, and Imam Abdullah ibn Mas'ud lived in Kufa, so naturally Imam Abu Hanifa chose the tashahhud of Ibn Mas'ud. As for Imam Shafi'i, because he spent some time in Mecca before going to Medina, and then even after Medina he returned to Mecca, he chose the tashahhud of Abdullah ibn Abbas, who lived in Mecca for a quiet period. Okay, go ahead, Majid.
وتدعو بما تيسر ومنه اللهم اغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولأئمتنا ولمن سبقنا بالإيمان مغفرة عزما اللهم اغفر لنا ما قدمنا وما أخرنا وما أسررنا وما أعلنا وما أنت أعلم به منا ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم إني أعوذ بك من عذاب القبر وأعوذ بك من فتنة المسيح الدجال وأعوذ بك من فتنة المحيا والممات اللهم إني أعوذ بك من المأثم والمغرم.
Okay, so that's and then after the tashahhud and the salat Ibrahimiyya, you make your dua of whatever is easier for you, and this dua, this is an example of the dua that you can make oh Allah, forgive me and forgive my parent and our the leaders, the imams of the ummah, those who preceded us, and then those who are before. So you make any dua that is easy for you. Go ahead, Majid.
فصل في مبطلات الصلاة ومكروهاتها. تبطل الصلاة بترك فرض من فرائضها أو بزيادة ركن إن كان فعليا كالركوع والسجود وبما أشغل عنه وبالضحك مطلقا وبتعمد النفخ بالفم وبالأكل والشرب وبالقيء إلا ما قل وطهر ولم يرجع بعد وصوله الفم منه شيء وبالكلام إلا القليل لإصلاحها.
Okay, so here, this is what invalidates your prayer, what breaks your prayer, the prayer. So the prayer is invalidated by the following: leaving one of the obligational acts of prayer that we have seen, right? And sometimes people take it light to not to be still in the prayer. You will see somebody go into his ruku, just barely touching the ground with his front head and remove it, sujud, sorry. And the same thing, ruku, not going to full stop in your ruku. This invalidates your prayer. It's important to know. And so not doing a pillar invalidate your prayer. You left one ruku or one sujud in your prayer, or you did not recite the Fatiha unless if you were joining the Imam. Your prayer is not valid. So leaving one obligation or also adding another obligation to your prayer, invalidate it. You add intentionally a ruku or a sujud, or adding something that prevent from performing an obligation, laughing regardless of what caused you to laugh, invalidate your prayer, intentionally blowing air through the mouth, invalidate your prayer, intentionally eating or drinking, and vomiting food, except if the vomit was unintentional, or it was a small amount and did not go back to your down to your throat after it has reached the mouth. So in this case, it will not invalidate. Otherwise, it invalidates it. A speech, except talking during your prayer, invalidates that, except if you were talking just to repair, to rectify the prayer. The Imam forgot and did not know, and you say Subhanallah, and he did not pay attention, and you say the Imam, you forgot one rakah or the sujood, or to sit in the middle. That will not invalidate it. Go ahead, Majid.
وبالسلام حال الشك في الإتمام وتصح مع ظن التمام إن تبين تحققه وبسجود المسبوق الذي لم يدرك ركعة مع الإمام قبليا أو بعديا وبترك السجود القبلي إن كانت عن 3 سنن وطال وبالأفعال الكثيرة وإن سهوا وبالفتح على غير إمامه وبسبق الحدث أو نسيانه.
Okay, so here what invalidates your prayer again, it's saying the salam, the exit salam, the final salam, while one is in doubt about the completion of the prayer. So you doubt if your prayer is completed or not, and you say Salamu Alaikum. This invalidates your prayer if you have to pray over, redo your prayer. The prayer, but in this case, if the prayer is correct, if you say the salam being almost sure the prayer was complete, and it became apparent that it was complete. So you were right. So you don't have to redo that prayer. A latecomer prostrating the qabli or the ba'di if he did not catch one rakah with the imam. So for the Maliki, as we will see, there's no one way of making the sujood al-sahu, the sujood of forgetfulness. So if you omit something, your sujood is before the salam, and if you add something, your sujood is after salam, and we will see that in details, inshallah, next week. So if you are a latecomer, you are a masbuk, you came and joined the prayer, you joined the prayer behind the imam, and the imam was in the final, in his tashahud, the final tashahud. You did not catch with the imam a rakah, which the rakah is caught by catching a ruku. So if you miss the last ruku of the last rakah, you did not catch the rakah of the imam. In this case, when the imam go to his sujood al-sahu, his forgetfulness sujood, be it qabli, before salam or after salam, you don't follow him because your prayer is separated from the imam. If you pray, you follow him, your prayer is not valid. That's harsh, but fortunately, other than Maliki, do not say that. Leaving the qabli, if it was وبترك السجود القبل إن كانت ثلاثة سنن وطاعة. So if the sujood qabli, the sujood that you do before the salam, if that sujood was to repair 3 sunnah that you have missed for a long time, and you have missed and you don't bring the sujood for a long time, your prayer is not valid. So long time is measured by it is left to your own appreciation. A lot of action in your prayer, even if it was done out of forgetfulness, you doing a lot of movement in your prayer, that also invalidates your prayer. But what is a lot of movement? The Maliki did not really give give a measurement. They left that to your appreciation and the appreciation of people. When people look at you, they will not think that you're praying from the extent of the movement that you are doing. Correcting the recitation of someone other than his imam. So you're praying behind the imam and you heard somebody reciting next or outside the masjid, made a mistake in his recitation, and you correct that recitation, your prayer is not valid. And being overcome by a hadath, or forgetting that he was in hadath, this will invalidate your prayer. So let's say that you have to you are praying and you did not control yourself, you pass wind, for example, or you remember that you have passed wind, you broke your prayer is not valid. You have to stop and start over after you make wudu. Go ahead, Baji.
والمكروهات الدعاء أثناء الفاتحة وفي الركوع والقراءة فيه أو في السجود، والدعاء بعد التشهد الذي لا سلام فيه، والسجود على ما فيه رفاهية، وجاز على الحصير والأرض أفضل، والالتفات بلا حاجة، وتشبيك الأصابع وفرقعتها، والإقعاء والتخصر والتغميض.
So what are the disliked actions of the prayer are supplicating during the Fatiha, during the time that you're reciting the Fatiha, you're supplicating there, or supplicating during your ruku, or after the tashahhud that is not followed by the salam, the middle tashahhud, making a dua in the middle tashahhud, that's disliked. Recitation of the Quran during ruku and sujood, the hadith in that, it is disliked to recite Quran during your ruku or your sujood. And prostrating on something that is luxurious, something that is luxurious that you don't need, it is disliked to pray on that or prostrate, make your sujood on that. It is permissible to prostrate on a straw mat, but prostrating on earth is better, right? Uh, when you have a direct contact of your forehead with the earth, that's better, but it is permissible to use a rug, a mat to make your sujood on. Looking around without a reason, turning around and looking, as long as your chest does not turn away from the Qibla, that's dislike. If your chest turn away completely from the Qibla, that's you have left one of the condition of the prayer and the prayer will not be valid. But if looking around is for some reason, that's not dislike. Interlocking the fingers, breaking them, cracking them to have a sound is disliked in your prayer. Interlocking the fingers and cracking the knuckles also are disliked. And sitting up on let me see. Sitting up on the balls of the feet. So this is when you sit and on your feet and you fold your knees, right? Your knees goes toward your chest. That's iqa'a. That's dislike. And placing the hands on the hip, two hands on the hip, that's also dislike. And closing your eyes during the prayer is dislike. Go ahead, Majid.
ورفع رجل أو وضعها على الأخرى والإقران لا الاعتماد على واحدة والسجود على كور عمامته والتفكر بدنيوي فإن كثرت الطيات أو غلب التفكر حتى لا يدري ما صلى بطلت صلاته.
So raising one foot or placing one foot on the other during your prayer is disliked because it seems to be contradicting the idea of being concentrated in your prayer. Placing the feet together, joining the feet together while standing, that's also disliked, although leaning on one feet is not disliked. Like sometimes you need that if the recitation is long. Prostrating on a fold of the turban. You have a turban and the tail of the fold of the turban, you prostrate on that, that's dislike. And thinking about the dunya is naturally disliked. If the fold of the turban were فإن كثرت التريات أو غلب تفكري. So if the fold of the turban were many, or you thought a lot about the dunya so much that you don't remember how many rakah you were prayed, this will invalidate your prayer because you were out of concentration. So that will be all for today. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Now we stop here unless if there are questions.